So today we're going to talk about my favorite 7 book recommendations. And this actually was inspired by somebody on our coaching call today. And they said, Todd, what are some books that I need to read? And so I made this list today. So I'm going to share it with you. But before I jump in today's episode, if you have not, head over to nextlevelwholesaling.com. And there is an assessment there you've got to take. If you're already doing deals and you're like, Todd, how do I make more money? How do I get more time back? How do I have a business that really has me off the hamster wheel? The Next Level Wholesaling Assessment is for you. I actually created it for myself, and I always had it rate me in the 4 core areas of my wholesaling business. That was marketing, acquisition, disposition, and accounting, profit, right? That's really the most important thing. And so when you take it, it's going to give you a score, and it's going to become abundantly clear on the very next thing that you need to work on, right? And the cool thing about this is that you could take it more than once. It's totally free, and it's going to be like, wow, okay, I really need to do X, Y, Z. Totally free. You're going to love it. nextlevelwholesaling.com. All right. So that being said, I'm going to give you 7 book recommendations, and this covers a wide variety of things. And so some of these, again, I said that you may have heard, some of you haven't, but my first one, and one of my all-time favorites, is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Man, I don't care what area of life you're in. If you read The Compound Effect, it'll change your life. I read this book at least once a year. You could get through it in maybe 2-hour sittings. And really the premise of the book is that small changes have a massive impact over time, right? Some of the things that you would think that just wouldn't make that much of a difference, right, actually wind up being complete game changers when you add the game of time. You know, the author gives a great analogy of a airplane that leaves, I think, in LA or San Diego and flies to New York. And if you just have a plane that's just a couple of inches off course, if you basically don't change that mid-flight, just those couple of inches, right, that trajectory will actually take you to, let's say, Washington, D.C., right, 3 states over versus the original destination. And I can tell you that the compound effect is extremely real in business. Your ability to market every week, the ability to get back to leads fast enough, the ability to practice your sales skills, man, those things, they just add up over time. And they literally will determine the difference between someone who's making no money and eventually quits to someone who has a multi-million dollar net worth. And so you got to read The Compound Effect. I'll never do it justice, but if I had to say, hey, and I know I started with one of my favorites. These are really, really all good, but you got to get it, and it's super cheap. So go ahead and check that out, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. All right, so that being said, this next book is something that I read probably a decade ago, and I still refer to it. And I've only read it twice all the way through, but I constantly open it up as like a reference after that. And this next one is called No Excuses by Brian Tracy. And I put the second for a reason, because that first one is the compound effects. It always talks about like why is it so important to control your daily habits, and why is it so important to pay attention to the small, easy things, right? But a lot of people are like, well, what are those things? And so No Excuses by Brian Tracy actually lays out what those small things are that are the complete game changers. And so if you're like, okay, what are the top 10 things I need to do in this area of my life? Go ahead, open up No Excuses by Brian Tracy. Just absolutely love that book. It just makes so much sense. So check that out. All right, the next one, this one could actually be one of my favorites, but it's more in the personal growth category. And this is the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell. And so this book on growth basically lays out the 15 things that you need to do to concentrate on your growth, the mindsets. And so one of those things that it talks about is just being intentional about your growth, right? Is that if you actually are not being intentional about your growth, it is not going to happen, right? You have to force yourself. You have to create a plan for yourself to actually grow. And man, every time I read this book, I always get an aha. I have my pen that I always highlighted and I posted on social media. You've got to check that out. Again, that's 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell. One other tip from that book, and it always rings true for me, is that oftentimes when you grow, you often will have to take a short-term pay cut, right? A short-term decrease in compensation. Ooh, that one is really uncomfortable. And uncomfortable is also usually code for growth. Not always, but usually. So check out 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. That is one that I really can't do justice by talking about it. So buy that one, and that's an easy read too. All right, next one. Let's talk about personal finance. If I had to select the easiest book on personal finance, the one that if you read it would change your life and change your kid's life for generations, it is The Richest Man in Babylon. The concepts are so easy and they make so much sense that you just can't help but put it into practice, okay? And so one of the things he talks about is, okay, listen, if you just take 10% off of what you earn, right, eventually you're like, okay, that's so little, right? But if you keep on doing that month after month after month after month after month, eventually, okay, your purse will be so full. You'll have more money than you can spend. That's really, 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 really important. The other part about this is increasing your earning potential and becoming more valuable to the marketplace. Another third point from the book that I love to talk about is he talks about be wise with your money. Your number one job is to protect that capital first, right? You want to protect it from loss rather, okay, than trying to get some unrealistic return on your money. Richest Man in Babylon. It's a classic. You got to read it. Next one. The One Thing by Gary Keller. Oh, this one's a doozy, and you may have heard this one. This one made the rounds, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. And really, in regards to The One Thing, it talks about distractions and how they are just two killers, right? If you try to chase two rabbits, you will chase none. There's another analogy, and it talks about if you take, the sun, right, is not really going to burn anything. But if you focus it with a magnifying glass, right, then you could light a piece of paper on fire. And so my kids in the summer, they go out there in the driveway and they use a magnifying glass and they actually burn paper with a magnifying glass. And this is all about eliminating distractions, eliminating multiple things in your business. Some of you are in multiple markets. Some of you have distracted focuses and multiple businesses. Some of you are bouncing around from thing to thing to thing on a daily basis with no focus. And I got to tell you, The One Thing is extremely powerful, a great book. Once you get it, you're going to have a hard time putting it down. Next one is big on mindset. And this is an old one that you may have not heard of. If you were in my inner circle, I've talked about this. But this one really focuses on the mindsets, the roadblocks, and the barriers that hold us back. And it's called Release Your Brakes by James Newman. Release Your Brakes by James Newman. And a big part of that is as how we look at the world, how we observe the world, how we create these self-limiting beliefs to prevent us from taking action. And so if you're here, you're like, okay, I want to make a lot of money, right? I want to become an entrepreneur, or I want to be financially free. And so a lot of these things are so easy. Think about it, right? What is the difference between someone who's making $25 million a year, and let's say you're on this podcast and you're making $80,000 a year, and you're like, I want to get to where he is getting or she is getting. Well, I can tell you it's the difference to how they think and how they view the world. Because if you're already working hard, well, that other person's already working hard. You're both working hard. So what is the difference? Well, the difference is what they do. But really, think about this. Why do you do different things? You do different things because you see things differently. Your thoughts are differently. Your optics are differently. The goggles that you look at things, or the glasses that you look at things, are different. So I can't do this book justice. It's an older one. It's a great book. It's not that easy of a read, but it has got some great, great info in there. You got to check that one and put that in there on your top 7. My 7th one, and the first 6 really focused on you as the entrepreneur, right? How are you going to change yourself and work on yourself and think differently and be differently and grow? The last one is more for your business. How should your business operate? And this one has also become popular in recent years. And check out Traction. Traction is a phenomenal business book. And really, if to be frank, this book actually was kind of a how do I say this nicely? It's kind of a rewrite or a summary of the book, The Rockefeller Habits or Scaling Up, which really, if you take the books of Rockefeller, the habits that he had and how he ran his book, right? They took this in Traction. Again, this is just my own opinion. So it's not, I don't want to say it's ripped off, but basically maybe it's a simpler version of that book. But the book Traction talks about how to create a vision for your business, how to find the right people to help you build, how to measure if you're doing really, really, really good, how to find and move on from how to find the right people and how to move on from the wrong people and how to keep growing and to make that business thrive. So Traction is a phenomenal book. So I'll review those. The Compound Effect, that's by Darren Hardy. We got No Excuses by Brian Tracy. We've got the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell. We got The Richest Man in Babylon. We got the Release Your Brakes by Jim Newman. And then we have Traction over here, and that is by Gino Wickham. So I hope you enjoyed today's show. That's my top 7. It could change, but right now, those are just the 7 that I had to refer to. And go ahead, buy them. Take a picture on social media and just give me a shout out at Todd Toback on social media. And I would love to see that you're investing in yourself. Don't forget to head on over to nextlevelwholesaling.com. Take the assessment, and I will talk to you on the next episode.